Hey guys, Marill here, and welcome to Let's Talk episode 4. Episode 4, excuse me. Sorry, I need to be louder. I know that. In this episode, we'll be discussing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and why I personally think they get more hate than they deserve. As I've stated before, this is a series where I just speak my mind about what I want to speak my mind about, with sometimes with a script, sometimes not, with very minimal editing. And yeah, I ask you openly to speak your mind in the comments, whether you agree, disagree, say what you think about the games, and be civil with each other in the comments below. So let's get into it. Now, BDSP, many people love them, many people hate them, many people consider them the worst Pokemon games. Now, why do people hate on these games? Well, they were buggy at launch. People don't like the chibi art style. People wish there were more added content. People, there's a bunch of stuff, and you can go and listen to other people talk about it. But I personally think a lot of those things aren't valid points. I mean, the art style is unique and new. It's different compared to what we've had. Being different doesn't make it inherently bad. It just makes it different. I've compared it very much to Heart Gold and Soul Silver, right? Because BDSP are basically Heart Gold and Soul Silver 2.0, right? They're a newer version of an older game that keeps the base art style but modifies it and adds a little bit of post-game for newer legendaries from other generations. They're basically the same thing. It also adds following Pokemon. And the following Pokemon in BDSP were not good. From my understanding, they copied Sword and Shield's following code, and Sword and Shield's following code was bad, so BDSP's following code was bad. Unfortunately, they haven't fixed that, and that's a huge problem in the game. Again, I'm going to say I have problems with the game, but my problems don't make it an inherently bad game. Another thing I will say is I do have an inherent bias towards Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. They were some of the best remakes ever. I grew up with them. They were my middle school years, some of the best years of my life. But one thing I'm not going to do is allow my bias of auras to, to affect the outcome of my decision on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I feel like many people compare BDSP to auras wrongly. They're very different. They have very different goals, and as much as I would love more post-game content or a little bit of story change in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it's not auras, and it doesn't need to be auras to be a good standalone game. Another thing that I personally love in games is glitches. The glitches in Sword and Shield and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were part of what made the game fun. It felt like going back to the original Gold, Silver, and Crystal, even Red, Blue, and Yellow, to be honest. It really felt like those glitches. It's like you could... Well, hell, even Diamond and Pearl had a bunch of glitches, and it felt like a nostalgia being able to clone Pokemon, being able to walk through walls and do all these glitches, and you didn't have... Like, it's not like Cyberpunk, where the glitches just happen if you play the game. Well, some of them are, but there were no game-breaking glitches that would just happen. You generally had to be intentionally doing something in order to perform these glitches, which is part of what makes these games fun. Again, look at Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. They have some of the most complex glitches that make the game amazing and make it so much fun to speedrun. So I don't believe that the glitches it has make it an inherently bad game. So, now, let's talk more about the art style. Similar to Link's Awakening, it took the chibi art style and made it when you're on the map, you have the chibi art style, but while you go into a battle, you have the 3D art style. I think this is a really good idea. At first, I didn't like it very much, but as I played the game, I began to adopt it, and I think it's really cool to see the original 2D sprites again in more of a 3D environment. Now, one of the biggest critiques I have with that is I think for the cutscenes, you shouldn't have made them chibi. So for the Elite Four battles, for Cynthia, for Cyrus, all of those, you probably could have transitioned to a 3D screen with their 3D models. Like when Cyrus is monologuing, it would have been better to do that, at least for the story cutscenes, and it probably would have made it so much better. But overall, again, it's not a huge deal breaker for me. I've grown used to it. I like it. And I hope more people would be willing to give it more of a chance, because I feel like you can't say it's a bad game because it's, by calling it a bad game, you're basically saying Heart Gold and Soul Silver are bad games and BDSP are bad games, right? No, now it's not exactly that, right? Like I said, there are valid criticisms, and if you are validly criticizing it, I'm not calling you out on that. I'm just saying calling it an inherently bad game because of, things that they've done in previous games seems hypocritical to me. Also, sorry about the Gatorade. I need to make sure I stay hydrated during these things. When I do a lot of talking, it dries out my voice. Let's see, we've covered graphics, we've covered glitches, we've covered, I think that's pretty much it. I don't remember if I said anything else at the beginning. I remember saying graphics, glitches, and something else we covered. Oh yeah, no additional story content, but I covered that. So yeah, I think that's going to be the end of this episode. It's going to be a little bit shorter, but I would love to hear what you think. What is your rating of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Like I said, I think that it's getting more hate than it deserves, but I would love to hear other people discuss it in the comments down below. And this is Professor Marill signing off. Thanks for listening.